Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Kris. This video is sponsored by a special person. Special person sponsored this video. They don't want you to know who they are. They just wanted to donate and said thank you. This is born again Christian converts to Islam after reading the Bible. So we've already done part 1. Bare minimum, you can click that. You can subscribe to the channel if you like the content. I know I'm not for everybody. You can click on the thanks button to donate to the channel. If you would like to help keep the channel rolling, you want to sponsor a video, you just want to say thanks. Not required. I completely understand. Hard times. Everybody needs them casholas to pay their bills. A lot of time banks, if you're like, well, I gave to this YouTube channel, they'd be like, cool. So you gave what you should have used to help pay this bill. Banks are not understanding at all. I get it. Okay, this is going to be another 17-minute video. And let's get into it right now. Or do you want to just we can just, you know what? Let's just sit here and just enjoy each other's time. Let's just look lovingly into one another's eyes. You want me to, oh, yeah, you didn't care about that. My apologies. Let's get to the video.
And I found that very interesting and striking, actually.
When did you take your Shahada?
You mean the exact date? Well, it was a long time ago, over 10 years ago, and it was in the Imam's office at Regent's Park Mosque. But that was a fulfillment of a process. It wasn't a before and after event, really. That I'd been on a journey, and that was a crucial turning point. And then I continued the journey as a Muslim at that point. So it was more fulfillment than a radical disruption or rejection of the past. It wasn't like that. There's so much, I do want to stress this, if only to myself, there's so much in Christianity that is true. And sometimes, like an iceberg, we see the bit above the water that differs between us and Christians. But actually there's this invisible iceberg beneath the surface, whether it be the belief in one God, belief in angels, the day of judgment, that the prophets, Jesus being the Messiah, born of a virgin, and so on and so on and so on. All of this is pretty unique, common territory with Christians.
Right.
So I didn't reject any of that, really. But there were some key points, obviously, to do with who Jesus was and so on. We did have a difference of view.
How was that experience?
Which experience?
When you took your Shahada?
Gosh, it was... I was very conscious of becoming not a new person, but assuming a new existential reality, that I was a Muslim. I know it sounds obvious, but and that I had moved, I've crossed it over and
No, when he says he was a Muslim, and I completely understand. There's a change, a drastic change in a feeling of who you are if you've grown up in this type of belief system and structure and way of life, to shift, although seems, I don't want to say normal, because it's not normal. It hasn't been normalized in you yet. You are still living like yesterday, when now today it's a different journey of your life. So I get it would feel weird.
Visible civilizational line, a red line that people don't talk about, from being part of the dominant white male middle class majority to identify, and gladly, with an often misunderstood and often despised minority. And it affected things like politics. No longer did I sort of, casually embrace the Western view of the world. Suddenly I understood, or began to understand in my own inadequate way, the pain of, say, the Palestinians, for example, rather than just adopting the standard narrative one gets. So becoming to identify, not just spiritually, but politically and every way, with the Ummah was very interesting indeed. And that's something I'm still absolutely fascinated by, and I'm very happy to be part of this reality, this global family of submitters to God. And so we share their joys and their pains. And so one takes on to some extent their pain as well. One can't be indifferent. When one, as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, when one part of the body suffers, then we all suffer. You know, what the toothache is something, it becomes very, or much more serious, becomes something we all experience. Right. And so that was, whereas before I never encountered that before, actually.
What surprised you about Islam?
I think the one thing that Christians don't get, and it's a big lacuna in their own worldview, is that faith is not just about a personal relationship with God. So, you know, I have my scripture and my relationship with God, and then on Sunday I attend a service for 45 minutes, and that's my religious duty for the week. Right. Obviously for Muslims, Islam is a deen, which is not a religion, it's everything. Yep. It's a whole way of life. And that public dimension, particularly of faith, is missing, has been lost in Christianity, and there are interesting reasons why it's been lost. But in Islam, we believe that God, who is the creator of the heavens and the earth, and he knows best how to organize a society successfully for the well-being and flourishing of human beings, and also to fulfill our true purpose, which isn't to accumulate lots of money and so on. So Islam is the only serious alternative on the planet, I think, to the prevailing secular Western capitalism, liberal paradigm, because it takes all of life seriously, and Christianity doesn't. I know that Christians think it does, but in practice, if you ask a Christian, well, what's the Christian view on interest? What? The question, they don't understand the question. Well, what do you mean the Christian view on interest? Well, Islam has a view on riba, of course. And anything else, you know, what's the Christian view on capital punishment? Well, if you ask Christians from Texas, they'll probably all say, you know, yeah, it's a great thing. But if you ask 10 Christians, representative Christians in England, they'll say, oh, we're against the death penalty. And the Catholic Church is against the death penalty. There's no consistent view.
Right.
There's also a using the religion in a way that would benefit you, but at the same time you would ignore. Meaning, I don't want this person to do this. It's against religion. And yet they say that while they're wearing, a cloth made of two different, or a garment made of two different kinds of thread, like cotton and something, a polyester. And it's like, well, I don't know what the rules are, but aren't you supposed to be punished for that? Nah, we don't follow that anymore. Oh, so you pick and choose what you follow, but you want somebody else to follow everything that you believe is necessary for the way they live, not how you live. You get a little more freedom. And that's always also used against other people, which is one thing that I never enjoyed about religion. That's one of the things that is hard for me.
Islam has a very clear, and always has had right from the beginning, a clear set of guidelines and laws which are meant to regulate and our society. And we need that guidance because we mess things up. We don't need to argue for that case. We've obviously messed things up big time. So we need to follow the instructions and guidelines of our Creator. And Islam provides that, and Christianity has lost that. I don't know any other religion in the world which does that at that scale, at that level. I mean, Judaism, Orthodox Judaism has it, but it really is it is for Jews.
Right.
The halakha is not meant for us, and that's like 0.3% of the population of the world. So I'm not a Jew, so I need guidance. Where do I turn? Well, Christianity doesn't give me guidance, does it? Mostly it doesn't.
Right.
So Islam is the only serious competitor, and it's the one that is, which is why I recommend Islam in that sense to people, as a solution.
What do most Christians misunderstand about Jesus? May peace be upon him.
Yeah, I think one of the things...
One thing we as people... How do I say this? And I don't want people to take this the wrong way. But we as people... I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it so I can say it, because I could say something but it comes off very wrong. We as people do as we're told. If we are given a strict set of, okay, you got to wake up at a certain time, you go to work. You eat lunch at a certain time, you clock out and come home at a certain time. You do things we are schedule related. We're very orientated around daily structure. That's the best way. We compartmentalize every part of our day associated with something else. And it's easier to be told this is what your structure is. Kind of like, I don't want to say a job. This is what your daily structure is. All you've got to do is just do these things. And then there you go. Some people want to rebel and do their own thing, and they end up doing bad things. But if you have a structure to what your day is, you're more apt to follow that and be at peace with kind of being told what you need to do every day, as opposed to just waking up and being allowed to live like an animal and do whatever you want. You're going to find more fulfillment in achieving those goals every day than waking up and having no goals to achieve and being left to your own devices. So I could understand. I don't want to say this negatively about myself. I'm a follower in terms of, if you say, hey, this is what you have to do for the week. Cool. I can get into it. I can do it. But if you were to walk up and say, you figure out what you want to do for the week. Then I'm trying to figure out if what I've done is enough. Am I supposed to do more? Am I supposed to do less because this other person did less? This other person did more. Where am I supposed to fit? Is this a race? Is it a competition? And then you will begin to have doubt fill into your mind. So I get having a structure where everything in your day is compartmentalized. You have to achieve. Now you have your own time to relax. And I would be happier with that structure.
I've learned through studying the historical Jesus. This is the topic, the subject matter of mainly Western historical research. Is that, and this is a relatively recent thing, the last 100 years or 150 years, is that there's now a wide consensus that Jesus of history, rather than the Jesus of Christianity, did not consider himself to be God, did not think of himself to be divine at all. The consensus in New Testament scholarship now is that Jesus considered himself a prophet and a Messiah, an eschatological prophet particularly. That's exactly what Islam teaches. And one of the remarkable convergences and signs of the divine origin of the Quran is, in my view, is that Islam gets Jesus exactly right. Obviously, we would think that, but there is secular historical confirmation of that. And that Jesus did not walk around saying, I'm God. He didn't say, worship me. Mm-hmm. So although Christianity claims that is a later tradition where Christianity proper grew out of a gentilization of the original Jewish faith of Jesus, where it became a Jesus cult. So instead of honoring him as a prophet and Messiah, it made a fetish out of him, like in other Greco-Roman cults centered around this eponymous founder. But the original Jesus wasn't focused on, his message wasn't focused on himself, but on God. Mm-hmm. So he preached God, his kingdom, how to be sincere, how to be loving, how to follow God's law in a way that Jesus taught it. he did not preach Christianity. And this is one of the most fundamental insights, that Jesus was not a Christian. He didn't call us to be Christians.
Right.
He called us to be submitters of God in a certain way. And because I was schooled a little bit in that, when I saw what Islam taught, I recognized a deep correspondence between that, and that was what helped me see the authenticity of Islamic teaching, because what I'd seen about the original Jewish teaching of Jesus. I mean, so if you look deep enough, you can see the connection. If you move beyond the superficialities of Islam and Christianity, at a deeper level, there is a connection.
And Deuteronomy, right, where it speaks about I'll raise a prophet unto you, like...
Oh, Deuteronomy 18:18.
Yeah, can you speak about that?
Oh, gosh. There are passages in the Bible that we have today, like Deuteronomy 18:18, another chapter.
Can I just say that the host of the channel is very soft-spoken? He seems like he should have a booming voice, and he's just, could you speak about that for me? That'd be fantastic. He's just very soft-spoken and gentle with how he communicates, which I think would probably invite people, because he's not interrupting you. He's, yeah. And I think that is very appealing to talking to, because you'll just keep talking, and he's just...
Isaiah 42, which do strongly seem to suggest, and passages in the New Testament, which strongly talk about Jesus in some ways. Now, this is contested. Biblical scholars wouldn't necessarily agree, but I think if you have eyes to see, you can see the correspondences. I'm much more impressed with Isaiah 42, actually, rather than the Deuteronomy is very brief. With Isaiah 42, you get much more detail. Dr. Ali Attai, for example, has spoken very eloquently on this, on blocking theology, about this. So I recommend people watch that, because he knows the biblical Hebrew and the Greek and so on. But yeah.
Give me a second. The dog's getting excited, so I got to let him out. All right, back to the video.
There's extraordinary prophecy of the coming of someone like Muhammad, who we obviously believe was the one being referred to.
How did your life change after becoming a Muslim?
Well, there was good ways and bad ways. I think one of the painful ways was I had several very close friends, Christian friends, who one of whom was very close. He was a deputy headmaster and teacher of theology and quite a brilliant young scholar. And as soon as he heard I had said my Shahada, he never spoke to me again. It was like I ceased to, he ghosted me, as we put it today. And that was hurtful, because he just was, obviously. But I was blessed in that I lost some close friends, but I gained so many more Muslim friends. So the loss wasn't irredeemable. But no, it was mostly a great blessing, actually. But it is painful being a Muslim in some ways in our world, particularly with the rise now of right-wing populism and so on. The amount of, you see it increasing all the time.
The one thing that you have to remember is when you make changes in your life, you'll find that the people who don't like it are the ones who, this is just to me, the people who don't like it are the ones who were probably around you for their own needs. You were doing something, whether that was you were a drinking buddy, you were a go out and have fun with person, you were this, you were that. You are changing your life. You are trying to better yourself. And they don't like that, because your change affects them. And it doesn't. It doesn't at all. If I make a change and anyone in my life has a problem with that, that's not my problem. That's theirs. If family refuse to talk to me, Oh, well, that's if you lose people around you because you've made a change to better yourself, then they were never there for you to ever be the best that you could be. They were only there because they benefited off of you somehow. And now that you've made that change, oh, now he's going to wear the garb. He's going to walk around like this. He's going to do. They've made assumptions, and now they don't want to be around you. That's the best thing that could happen to you. That is the best thing that could happen to you. If you were strung out on drugs and you said, I want to get clean, and all your other heroin friends were saying, no, come on, man, we have so much fun. We rob people, right, in the daytime so we can get money, and then we go buy drugs, and then we cook them on a spoon, and then we all share the same needle. Isn't that fun? Come on, man. Don't ruin my buzz. But the person who says, I've been trying to help you, and if you're being serious, I will absolutely help you, and I'll do this journey with you. That's somebody who's always cared about you. Because as soon as you stop and you get out of that environment, those people are like, whatever, thinks he's better than us. Let's go rob someone so we can get more heroin. Yeah, you do that. You do you. I'm going to try to clean myself up and make something of myself, but you continue to do what you want to do. Now, flip it out of the drugs. I'm going to try to improve my life and better my life and feel like I found a purpose for my soul. And if those people can look at you and say, nah, I don't like it. I don't like it. That's not going to happen. You're going to come back to this. You got to cut them out of your life right then. You can't allow other people to dictate how you live your life as long as you are doing something where you are on a journey like this. You have to move on. You have to be willing to sever ties with people. It's an unfortunate thing. But as he said, you're going to sever ties with people who probably never really cared about your well-being, but suddenly now they do because they don't want you to change. They weren't there for you when you were low. But now that you want to be better, they want to curb you into being better in the way they believe you need to be. But they can live their life how they choose, and they can go down their paths that they have decided to do. But they can't drag you along like a puppy on a leash. No, you can't allow that. And when you do join, you're going to find a community of people who have probably, in some form or fashion, dealt with the same thing. And you're going to find an amazing bond with those people. Because you've all come to this for a reason. You've all, in some form or fashion, experienced the same thing. Some were born in a Muslim family, grew up in a Muslim family, and stayed Muslim. They're going to welcome you in. They're going to listen to you, and they're going to be like, wow, can't believe that would happen. But they're going to completely understand. But the people who have been through the same thing, you're going to find a whole other family of friends that now I know we're on the same path together. And I know they're looking out for me. And I know that I can never fall back into something else, something that's bad, because they've got me. Because my salvation is just as important to them as their salvation is to them. And we're all going to be there for one another. And that's something that's very important. You will lose people who don't care about you, but you'll find a whole other group that does. And in the end, isn't that what we're looking for?
A lot of it's very nasty and vindictive, and it's quite shocking, actually. But this is the experience of the prophets as well. Actually, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
Actually, so. But one of the things that really gives me a huge amount of hope to see, and I've noticed this not just in England, across the West, is that Muslim youth are so strong on the deen, actually, and compared to any other religious groups, I know Christians all over the place, but Muslims, they pray much more than their parents did. They're much more committed, and they're more committed than their parents were. It's a very heartening thing to see. So there's great sense of solidarity and hope, I think. I'm very optimistic about the future, actually.
What was your biggest challenge after becoming a Muslim?
Gosh. And was it giving up alcohol? Don't think so. I mean, I think praying 5 times a day was initially challenging. Ramadan was challenging initially because when I became Muslim, it was very, very hot. Well, it's in England, so it wasn't that hot. But it was getting into that sort of thing. So that the practicalities were challenging, I think. But and also, I mean, the ways of dealing with problem hadith or even problem, what I saw as problem passages in the Quran, because I still had vestiges of kind of a liberal worldview or secular worldview that I brought with me, and so there's this teaching about the hudud punishments, for example. Now it's not a problem. I understand because I understand the teaching in its fullness now. But when I initially encountered it, oh my God, how can that be true? The hudud punishments. But of course, once you understand the actual Islamic teaching, it's not quite what it seems. There's incredible mercy there as well, and the almost impossible criteria that you had to fulfill with the witnesses and whatnot. So there were things like that hurdles I had to overcome, but that was a learning process. So, and there were answers. And I learned not to panic. I think initially I'd panic. Oh my God, there's this teaching, and I spoke to.
There would also be a panic because you'd feel like you need to learn, you need to absorb everything like a sponge, because in a way, your conversion, maybe it's just me, would feel like I'm competing with people who have done this their whole life. And I have to show them that I have the ability to absorb all of this and learn and course correct and everything. But I wouldn't be expected to. But that is something that I put on myself. And that goes to history. When I read about the presidents, I read one book about the presidents and then I wonder, what did I not retain? So I'll read a thing about Washington. So I'll read another book about Washington. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember this. Oh, this is new. Well, how come these 4 new things that I learned in this book weren't in the first book? Now I got to read a third book. And, okay, 2 of the things that were in the second book are in this third book. But the third book left out some things that the first book told me. But the third book also included something new that I didn't know before. Well, now I got to read a 4th book because I got to keep, because apparently I'm not learning. And now I'm questioning, well, why isn't this being taught here? And why were these not in that? But then there's always this feeling of I'm not learning enough. I got to keep learning. And I use Washington as an example. On my bookshelf right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 books on Washington. Right next to him is Lincoln. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books on Lincoln. And next to him, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books on Andrew Jackson, just on my top bookshelf alone. Oh, 9. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. There's 9 because I got 1 downstairs of Washington. In my audiobooks, I've listened. Oh, and that's what I have available to read. I've read 9 books on Washington as it is. I've listened to 6 audiobooks about Washington. And I'm always learning something new. But because I'm always learning something new, I feel like I don't know everything. But also, that gives me an ability to, when I talk about him, I can share things and then little details, and because you may think you know everything about them, a general knowledge of things. And yes, this kind of goes to the conversion. You feel like you've gained knowledge, but then you realize, oh, I didn't gain everything. Oh, there's more to learn. Sometimes you just read one book and you feel like, nailed it, got everything I needed. No, you didn't. The book, if it's a book about someone's life and it's 300 pages long, you did not learn everything there was to learn. If it's one, or if it's 3 volumes and there are 300 plus pages, and you're reading 1,100 pages about someone's life that spans 74 years, that wasn't Washington, that's Benjamin Harrison. You didn't learn enough. You learned a fraction. You learned what was big, important. But that would be me. I would feel like I've got to learn everything I can so I can even talk to this person. But it's not about that. You don't have to do that. But that's how my brain works.
Wiser souls than me who say, look, don't panic, just calm down, and there are answers. And so now, if I ever did come across a problem, I'd be chilled about it. I think.
Right.
Fortunately, alhamdulillah, I know scholars, and but initially that was a discipline I had to acquire, and that is to learn ways to properly understand the faith from scholars, ideally, or people of knowledge anyway. So yeah.
How did your family and friends react to your conversion?
Well, about my friends, I lost a number of them. Well, my mother, oddly enough, was a missionary, a Christian missionary. So when I told her, much to my surprise, she was, let's say, accepting, but she took it in her stride and never rejected me or spoke harsh words or anything.
MashaAllah.
And my father never knew, because he was very elderly, and I never quite found the time. And I knew his reaction would be so negative, and I never found quite the moment. And he died, unfortunately. But he was becoming, as he got older, the more racist he became, and more harsh. And I thought, oh God, how am I going to tell him? I never got around to doing it, unfortunately. But my mother was much more compassionate and understanding.
So I would like to say my mom's compassionate, understanding, and loving. And she would say, whatever makes you happy. I just think she would have a problem if I had converted. She's gone. But I think that she would have had a problem because she grew up as a Christian. She never understood the Islam. Other than our neighbor, Mike and Muna, always talk about them. But it would come from not understanding and fear that it wouldn't be a religion, it would be a cult, and that they're going to want you to, and you see the bad things. If she saw, after 9/11 in Iraq, suicide vests, she would think that, oh, okay, well, you're going to go over there and wear a suicide vest. No, I'm not. Just because one crazy person does it and believes they're doing it for God doesn't mean everyone does. I mean, if that's the case, Bush said that we were going there for another, it was a crusade against terror. Okay, well, does that mean that because I dog whistle and I hear crusade, I got to go grab a sword and go fight somebody of a different religious belief? No. So I would think that as much as I want to believe she would be accepting, I think eventually she would be accepting, but initial would be fear of the unknown, which honestly, I think would be no different than if I told her I was an astronaut and I was going to be going to the moon, the very first mission to the moon. The fear is, what if there's monsters on the moon? Have you thought about that? No, I haven't thought about that. The fear would be to protect you from some unknown danger. My dad, if I told him, my dad would be like, I don't care, just whatever it is, just Don't drag me into it. That would be my dad's response. I don't give a shit. Just leave me out of it. My oldest sister, would probably be like, why? And then, all right, whatever. The one I don't talk to, definitely not like it. Because that would have affected her life. Which when I spoke about a little bit ago, how you got to run the risk of losing someone because your change affects them. That's exactly who I was talking about. But I don't have that in my life anymore.
Alhamdulillah, even though she was a missionary, oddly. So.
What would you say is your favorite thing about Islam?
Oh, it's not one thing. I think the things that...
By the way, side note, nothing to do with what we're talking about. I do apologize. I do this a lot. I got a new primary care doctor. She's very nice. She's awesome. It's great. But there's an assistant, and the assistant is very nice, very soft-spoken, but has went all over, just returned from Kenya on a humanitarian mission and wants to go and do more work. Basically, she just graduated. I think she said she's 22. But yeah, she wants to go like all over the world as a humanitarian with her doctor knowledge and help people. And I'm like, I'm listening to her talk. And then my doctor comes in, awesome. And I'm just like, this is a couple of good people. Like my primary care doctor is awesome. She answers all my questions. She doesn't treat me like other doctors to where I ask a question. It could be a stupid question, but I'm like, I just need to know if da da da. And she's just like, oh yeah, no, and just answers it. And I'm just like, wow, I appreciate that. You know, it's nice. And then the other one basically seems like she's in a rush to go to another country and help people. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do that. Making me feel like a piece of crap.
Our distinctive, which I didn't have before, is the sense of the ummah, the sense of brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, we're all brothers, and it doesn't matter the background or language or whatever, we're brothers. And this is not a superficial thing, like it can be in certain other religions. So there's that, which is really quite wonderful. The Quran, the fact that the Quran is intact, it's preserved completely as the word of God, unlike, you know, other revelations sadly have become lost in part or corrupted or whatever. So it's wonderful to have a revelation that is intact and that one can draw on all the time, every day. So I still read the Quran every day. Things like that. I mean, there's so many blessings, it's hard to list them all, but there'll be the two obvious ones, the Quran and the Ummah.
Have you seen the Birmingham manuscripts?
Yes, I have. I mean, just explain what they are. So there's a bunch of manuscripts, very old manuscripts that were sitting in the University of Birmingham archives for years and years and years. And then, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, a very enterprising young researcher looked at them again and sort of noticed that these manuscripts of the Quran, not the whole Quran, appear to be very early. So they had them carbon dated, and they were dated with some incredible degree of accuracy to the time of the Prophet himself. And this is extraordinary. The Quran, the fragments, so it's a number of pages, not the whole Quran, is exactly the same as our Quran today. So arguably, these are the earliest manuscripts of the Quran we have in the world that we know of. I mean, there are lots of fragments that are not still yet to be catalogued and dated and whatnot, and that's an ongoing scholarly job. But these ones have been, and they are. This hit the news big time. The BBC had a big splash about it. You can Google it now. You know, Birmingham Quran manuscripts. You can read it online.
Stupid question. Why is it called the Birmingham? Hold on, I already forgot.
BBC had a big splash about it. You can Google it now. You know, Birmingham Quran manuscripts.
Birmingham Quran, Birmingham Papers. Why is it called? I can only think it's called Birmingham because somehow it's in Birmingham, England. The papers are. And if that's true, how did they get them? And please don't tell me it's because of their time in the Middle East where they just took them, because that would suck. Unless they were sent to Birmingham to then carbon date, and they carbon dated them, and so now they're known as the Birmingham papers because they were carbon dated in Birmingham. That would be, I guess, an easier thing to digest. Birmingham manuscript. Hey, Kris, why don't you just look at the bottom where they've got the chapters, you stupid idiot. You big dummy. You big dummy stupid. I get down on myself. I apologize. This is almost over for today. And the
scripts, you can read it online. And the professor there, who's the head of the department, not a Muslim, is actually a Christian, who I interviewed on Blogging Theology about this. And he said, yeah, it's extremely light. This comes from the time of the prophet, and wow, So I went with some Muslim friends, and one I was with actually looked at it, and I said, can you read this? And he said, yes, I can. So he read it and told me what it meant. So, just to give some sense of comparison, if you ask a Christian, how many manuscripts do you have from the first century of Christianity? So I asked them, how many manuscripts? I know the answer. And I thought, I would sit there waiting. They think, 2, 3, no, 0. We have nothing in the first century. And I said, well, what about the second century AD? One, and it's a credit card sized fragment called the John Rylands P52. P52 means the 52nd text that was catalogued by the scholars. P means papyrus number 52, as they catalogued it. And that's dated to the middle of the second century, although about 125 AD, although now I understand from more recent research that actually it's a bit later than that. It's probably towards the end of the second century. It's actually getting worse. And that is our earliest actual physical copy. It's a tiny fragment of the Gospel of John. And that's it.
I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. Didn't mean to pause it on him looking bad. But it's interesting. Yeah, I like this. I like this interview setup. And it's really nice because the host doesn't jump in and kind of trample over you. He really genuinely just seems like this is an interview. I'm going to talk very little, and I'm going to let you just tell your story. And as somebody who could talk, he probably wouldn't like me because my mind jumps a lot. And so he'd be like, let's get back to I don't need to know about your vacation to Gulf Shores. Well, but let me just continue. Somehow I'd be telling the story. So if I was a firefighter, he'd be like, no. Let's just get your mind back to what we're talking about. Sorry, sir. All right, we're going to end this here. This is part 2. We will be back with the final part 3. But not tonight. Today, it's Sunday, 8:21 a.m., and I have 2 more videos to do, but I have to take a break because my dogs are driving me crazy. So until part 3, have a good day, have a good night.